I'd like to thank the grace of heaven, the virtues of the masters, and the compassion and mercy of the grand predecessors, senior transmitters, temple masters, lecturers, and everyone else for giving me the opportunity today to talk about today's class, which is chapter 42 of the Tao Te Ching. Okay, chapter 2 is titled, well, traditional, the title, it's called 综合 or harmonious flow of the Tao, or the source, okay, the Gunyuan chapter. All right, so this is about a slightly above average length chapter. It has 15 lines, or 15 lines, we call it phrases lines, and it's in 3 sections. All right, so section 1 is talks about the grand scale. I mean, it's really, as a matter of fact, this is the only chapter of the entire classic, the entire Tao Te Ching, that talked that at least gives what from Lao Tzu's perspective, the Tao's version of what we call the creation theory or the Genesis hypothesis, which we have an appendix on that. We'll talk a little bit about that later when we get into the the class. Okay, so that's what section 1 basically talks about, and it talks about how it applies to us too. Okay, and then that's in section 2 here. Okay, section 2, that's what it does. It talks about how the principle. I mean, you can say the principle of the yin and yang, the complementary dualities apply, and then his conclusion. Okay, all right. So that's the chat. It's a for a lot of people, a lot of scholars, or people who read the Tao Te, this is one of their favorite chapters. All right, and it has an interesting connection to pop culture, by the way. I'll take about 75 minutes for today's class. 75, maybe 80 minutes. Okay, it's moderate. It's a little above average length. Okay, just a little geek humor here. Geek humor. Okay, chapter 42, right? It's called 42. It just so happens this 42 number, I mean, this chapter is 42. It's connected. It has a connection, by the way, to what we call geek humor. If you go on Google, if you go to Google, I don't know if Alexa, maybe you could go on Alexa, ask a question. Google and ask the question, what is the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything? All right, so you just type it in, Google, go Google. What is the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything? Okay, you go to Google right now. If you type it in, the question it'll give you an answer. You know what the answer is? 42. Anyway, okay, 42. I mean, okay, that's a geek humor. Okay, geek joke. It came from that answer 42 or whatever, that came from an episode it's called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't know if you guys heard about it. It's probably before most of your time. It was a radio talk. It was a radio show back in the late 70s, early 80s, I believe. It was on the British, BBC. And it's a sci-fi comedy type of show. And that's one of the questions that that the people asked this super computer called Deep Thought. They asked the question, what is the ultimate, the ultimate question of life, universe, and everything. And the computer took like 7.5 million years to figure it out. Anyway, and so that's the thing. Okay, so but just interesting that it came up with 42. I mean, the author, what's his name? Douglas Adams, he was a British writer. Anyway, author of that. So he put 42. So, and it just so happens, chapter 42 of the Tao Te Ching talks about the creation of the universe, the cosmos. Okay? Anyway, so that's that's your little background for geek humor. All right. Okay. All right. So let's proceed to the outline. All right. Okay. Here. Okay. The very first sentence. The Tao produces the one produces two produce three produce mirrored things. Okay. All right. It's very simple. It's only like 12 words, 13, sorry, 13, right? 13 words, but it's 42. It's basically the 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 answer to, well, the Tao version of the Genesis hypothesis or the creation theory. Okay, all right. So let's talk about the basic meaning. It's initial. Okay, the ancients knew the following two things. Okay, they existed. The world existed, right? So there's existence. They could see that, right? They know that. They could see that. They could feel it. Number two, everything in this world, whether natural, we talk about living things. Okay, that's what we mean by natural. Living things or man-made human creations could be traced back to a time when they did not exist. Yeah, right. Okay, so those are the two, you can say facts, okay, observations. Okay, all right. So by combining the above two observations, they could reach a conclusion that must be true at some point in time. Existence itself came out of non-existence. All right. So this nothingness or void is the original state of the Tao. Okay. All right. So I mean, it could be a big jump, but that, some people say God. Okay, they use God. They say, oh yeah, you know, God created the universe, right? The earth, the heavens, the sky, etc. Okay, all right. So additional meaning is, so we can describe it as the one. No, what gave rise to everything, all right? To everything. So we can describe it as the one, something, anything, everything. I mean, that the one, okay? The one could represent something. Could be what could represent one thing or anything or everything, okay? And so that's the Tai Chi, okay? That emerging from nothingness, which is the zero state or zero or Wuji, okay? All right. So Wuji, so something, anything, or everything, that is the Tai Chi, came from this Wuji. Okay. So the true emptiness, that's the Wuji, the void, giving rise to one, the Tai Chi, which is something, anything, everything, or the Tao void, gives rise to unity, the Tai Chi. Okay. All right. Now the Tai Chi, well, okay, I'm gonna go down. Okay, so the Tai Chi is the one. Okay, so the Wuji, the Tao, the Wuji gives rise to the Tai Chi, which is the one. Okay, then, oh wait, okay, okay. So that's the first step. Okay, so this is the conclusion by the ancients of the Tao as the true empty source of everything, okay, which gives rise to the one, which could be something, anything, or everything. All right. So, okay, so that's the Tao theory level, okay, whatever. So on the world level, on the physical level that we can observe, or on that scientists could observe, it's going from the inorganic to the organic. That's the transition from the inorganic to the organic. So the emergence of life from non-life. In biology, they call it abiogenesis. Abiogenesis. Okay. Okay. All right. So it just means that, from the nothingness, we say inorganic because there's no life, right? Then it transitions to organic. Okay. So that's the science way. Okay, now the second phrase, or second part, is the one produces the two, right? Okay, so the one, where are we? Okay, second phrase. Okay, so the one we know is the Tai Chi, right? So by observing the endless variety and profusion of life and nature, the ancients understood that there had to be a progression from this one, this Tai Chi, this unity, to two, okay, to two, all right, or 两义, that's two, okay, the duality, And that's what the duality is. So they saw that male-female reproduction pattern and realized the yin, the female, and the yang, the male, played a central role or in this pattern of procreation. Okay, not just among humans, but all living things, animals. Okay, so the one must somehow give rise to the two, male, female, yin and yang. Therefore, the duality of yin and yang, which is a complementary duality, that's what Liang Yi is, must emerge from the oneness, the Tai Chi, that emerged from the emptiness of the Tao, the Wuji, the zero state, the state of void. Okay, so that's the logic that the ancients came up with. Okay, that progression. All right. Additionally, this then was extended to cover all complementary dualities. Okay, rather the yin and yang, not just for genders, male and female, but for all complementary pairs in nature. Okay, so pairs, just think of it as pairs. Okay, yes, we say positive, negative. Yeah, that's a pair, right? But that's very generic, right? So, such as all living things, including animals and plants, as well as inanimate objects like the stars and planets. Okay, so if you were going to look at the sky, the night sky, and you see stars and planets, that would be yang and yin. Okay, so the heaven and earth, heaven represents the yang, the earth represents the yin. Day and night, day represents the yang, night represents the yin. High and low tides, the high represents the yang, low represents the yin. Light and darkness, right? That's yang and yin. Up and down, yang and yin. Left and right, inside and outside, big and small, tall and short, high and low, light and heavy, good and bad, positive and negative. So these are pairs. So that's what yin and yang represents. Okay, doesn't have to be male and female. Doesn't have to be strong and weak. Okay, it's not like or white and black. Okay, it just means opposites. You can say or complements. We say complements, which are all the dualistic manifestations of the one that emerge from the emptiness of Tao. So that from the zero state to the unity, which gives rise to the duality. Okay, so that's what the one produces the two. Okay, so further understanding is, okay, it's important to understand that yin and yang does not mean, just male and female, just the genders. See, so gender is just one dimension, right? So think about yin and yang as covering all dimensions, but it just means that it's about the opposites. So yeah, between the gender dimension and the gender dimension, yeah, the opposites are male and female, right? Yeah. But in another dimension, there could be something else, right? So, okay. So it's rather as complementary, female-like and male-like energies and qualities. Okay. So think of it that way. Okay. So such as inactive, active, right? So we're thinking yin is inactive, it's still, right? It's motionless. Okay. Active is yang, so that's in motion. Okay. All right. Quiet, expressive, that's yin and yang. Okay. So yin is quiet, still, quietude, right? Yang is noise, expression, okay, manifestation. Introvert, extrovert, or introvert, outgoing. Okay, so yin and yang. Think of all these, pairs. That's what yin and yang really represents. Okay, not just male, female. Okay, all right. So thus, both. Now, with respect to the humans, right? Human being. Okay, so we have male and female, right? And so they embody each, both male and female, both embody. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Male and female that, where am I? Okay, right here. Yeah. That embody yin and yang in varying degrees. Okay. So it's not, so when you point to a female, you don't say she's 100% yin. That's incorrect. Or point to a male, that's 100% yang. That's incorrect. Okay. That's incorrect. Okay. So we have a mix. Okay. So mix of qualities. It's not that she's a female, so she's only yin, but within the female or the male, there are yin and yang also. Think of it as like subsets, okay, all right, or fractal subsets, okay, where the key is to balance both aspects and not to be attached to either duality. We'll get to a little later towards the end, where if there's an imbalance, well, I say imbalance, or too much yang, it could lead to something, okay, and something not good, okay. Anyway, all right. And also too much yin too, okay. So it's the key is balance, okay, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a 50-50 balance, okay. So that's very important, because that depends on the situation, conditions, etc. Okay, so now we talked about a little bit about this already in the previous chapter, chapter 28. It says to know the masculine, to hold to the feminine, okay. So that's the very first line in chapter 28, okay. So that, that means a balance, okay. You have to, you have both, okay. You have both qualities, attributes, energies, whatever you want to call it, with the yin and yang, okay. All right. Now, on the worldview, or the, you can say the external, external, it's going from unity, the Tai Chi, to duality, the Yin and Yang, and that means the differentiation of genders of living things. So not just humans, animals, plants, even, etc., etc. Okay, all right. Well, plants, maybe not viruses, because viruses and bacteria are kind of asexual, right? But there's a Yin Yang. They also have Yin and Yang. Okay, so people say, "Huh, what's that? What? They're not male. They're not female." See, that's only gender. But actually, all living things, in this case, microbes, bacteria, viruses, etc., they reproduce, right? Yeah, but it's asexual. But they're so from how to say, the yin and yang applied to them, to the microbes, okay, would be either they reproduce or they die out. So that's the positive, negative. Okay, so that's what it means. Okay, all right. So even though there's no gender associated with bacteria, right? As far as we know, right? Okay. So anyway, all right. Okay. Now the third phrase is the two produce the three. Okay. Now we're getting into more heavy stuff here. Okay. All right. So the basic meaning of that third phrase is that the ancient sages also observed that interaction was an important element. That is the yin flowing into yang and the yang into the yin. Okay. So it's not static. That's another way of saying the duality, the yin and yang, are not static. They're not fixed. They're not rigid. Okay. So that's very important. Okay. That's a very important understanding. Okay. So that's why if you look at the Tai Chi symbol, right? Okay, there's no straight line or division between the yin and yang in the yin and yang symbol. In other words, it's not a circle with a straight line through the middle, through the center. So it's like a half a pie, half a circle. Okay, that's not the Tai Chi or the yin and yang, symbol, the Tai Chi symbol. Okay, okay. So let me backtrack a little bit. The Wuji, okay, the Tao, which is the Wuji, okay, it's a blank piece of paper. It's really, it's blank. It's zero. We say it's void, right? So it's nothing. Zero, nothingness. But it's true emptiness. Okay, you can say in the Buddhist tradition they call it true emptiness, sunyata, etc. Okay, okay. So that's invisible, right? So it's the void. It's nothingness. So it's like a blank piece of paper. Example. Okay, I'm just here. Then the one is the unity. So it's like a circle. You can draw a line to it. Yeah, a line means it's stretched. But when it connects, it's cut. It's a circle. It just means, but that line would be infinitely long line. Okay, that's what the key is. That just circle, the one, the unity, the circle is infinite. It could be infinite, on the macro, extreme macro scale, or it could be infinitesimal on the extreme micro scale, right? I don't know what they call it, singularity or whatever, okay, all right, or an infinite wide circle. It just represents. That's why it's called Tai Chi. Tai Chi just means supreme ultimate. That means there's nothing beyond its limit or something like that. It's limitless. You can say it's limitless. Yeah. So actually, Wuji means limitless, infinite. the Tai Chi just means it's the supreme ultimate. That's the we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the Tai Chi would be a circle. Okay. Now, when the circle, just a blank circle. Okay, just a blank circle. Then when it gets the Tai Chi gives rise to the two. That's where we have the yin and yang. Okay, so within the circle, right, you have this yin and yang. So, okay, so, but this yin and yang is not static. So it's not a circle with a straight line, through the center, okay, cutting, in half, right, splitting the circle in half. It's rather like a what? S-like curve in the yin yang, right? So that's to indicate that there's motion, dynamism, yeah, motion of movement, of constant change between the dualities, the content. Okay, so I have a diagram. Initially, Uji would be blank, right? You don't see anything. It's invisible. It's blank. It's like this white paper, okay, nothing. Then Tai Chi gives rise to Tai Chi, which is just the circle. Think of it as the circumference of the circle, okay, just a circle. Nothing in the middle, okay. Then the Tai Chi gives rise or produces the what? The two, right? Which is the yin and yang or liang yi, okay? Okay, and that's the white. You see the white? That's the yang, and then the black is the yin, okay? Now, now it's not a straight line split in the middle. It's like a curve. It's like a, I don't know, this is a reverse S or upside down S, something like that. Okay. All right. So it just indicates that, see, the yang, here's the yang, okay, is, I don't know, it's chasing or whatever. It's merging with the yin, and the yin here in the bottom here is merging to the yang. So now the reason why this white is on top, the yang is on top, because yang represents up, the yin represents the down. Okay, and the white represents yang, the yin, the black represents yin. Now, why is there a black dot in the middle of the yang and a white dot in the middle of the yang? That just represents that it's relative. That means there's no 100% only yang. In other words, so even in yang, and here is the max, it's called the max of the yang. Now these dots are kind of big, but the more it should be a little bit smaller. But anyway, it just represents that even in the max, when yang is at its max, at its peak, okay, there is still a tiny amount of yin in it. And similarly, when the yin is at its max, at its peak, there's still a tiny amount of yang in it. So that's just to indicate this diagram anyway, is to indicate that it's relative. Nothing is absolute. So there's no such thing as absolute yang or absolute yin. That's impossible because we're in this dualistic realm. So that means dualism means that you have to have two. They're opposites, right? So you cannot have only one or the other, right? Okay, so that's what this represents. Okay, so anyway, but all right, okay, so hopefully you guys understand a little bit. All right, okay, so all right, so okay, so existence or phenomena is much more than just a static separation of yin and yang. It is dynamic. So it's in motion, remember that, okay? Or change, and that's what gives a change. That's what I want to tell. Full of actions and movements, like a dance, choreography. All of this could be described as transformations and transitions or change. Delta, okay, change. The eternal constant of change of all phenomena. So duality gives rise to Trinity, which is the constant of change. So I'll get a little bit later, but this is very akin to Buddha's teachings also. Okay, so in this phenomenal realm, change is constant. Okay, so that's why when we have change is constant, that already tells you one thing: nothing is permanent, right? Because permanent implies what? No change. Everything stays the same. It's rigid. It's fixed, right? then that's permanent. So yes, we look at the, on the human scale, you can see it, right? You can see it. Hey, you see a baby, young adult, mature adult, and an old person, and then they die, right? So you could see that, right? But on the cosmic scale, the timeline is further. It's the sun. I don't know. The sun was like how many billion, like several billion years old, something like that. So it exceeds our timeline. So we're not going to see the birth of the sun or the death of the sun, but it does. And it's also changing. Even though the sun looks like it's fixed, right? It's, fairly constant. It's always shining. But actually, it's changing. I mean, it's burning up hydrogen gas. And actually, the sun, if you study the sun, because it's gas, it's gases. It's not a solid, it's gas. It expands and contracts. You know that? Yeah, it has this period. It has a cycle, whatever they call it. It has this cycle of where it expands slightly and then it contracts slightly. Okay. Anyway, so the key is everything is in flux, change, and so therefore nothing is permanent. Okay, that's very important. So that's very ties well with Buddha's teachings. Okay. All right. So further. Okay. Oh, geez. Okay. Here. The dynamism is the third factor. That's the three, the Trinity, okay, that emerges from duality. So duality gives rise to Trinity, which symbolizes the dynamism, the change, the flux, the constant change, transformations and transitions of all phenomena. The two halves of duality begin to interact with another. That is to change or move in accordance with one another, which is represented by the Trinity. So on the world level and on the external world, it's going from duality, right? The two, the yin and yang, the complementary duality, to dynamism, which is change, and that's manifested as biological reproduction driving evolutionary change. Okay, so that's the Trinity. Okay, now this is on the broad scale, general scale. Now, there is a three meaning, another meaning this is more Buddhist teachings, okay, from three, all right? What's the deeper understanding of the Trinity? At the human level, because it applies to only humans, it's called the three refined or subtle conceptions. I don't want to go too deep in there. There's a lot of more detail, but here's what the three are. The first one is it's the ignorance or unenlightened condition. Okay, and so that's what initiates everything. So if we are, what I mean by initiate everything, it means that it initiates karmic cause. Okay, that's very important. All right, so if we are in a state of ignorance or the unenlightened condition or state, that's where the start of karmic cause or action starts right there. Okay, it starts right there. All right, so it's called 无明业相. Okay, the second subtle conception is the ability to perceive phenomena. Just means that our perceptive faculties, we have the ability, just ability right now, just at that stage, it's only ability to perceive things. Okay, to perceive objects or whatever. Okay, or even the mind. Okay, we have the subjective mind, which is your mental process, which I don't know, what's that, the sixth skanda, six or seventh skanda. Okay, all right, so that's the 转相 or 能见相. Okay, 能现象. Okay, then the third is perception of objects, physical objects, the empirical world. That's the external, the phenomenal world. That's what it means. So at the third, that's when we have forms. So in 1 and 2, you don't have forms yet. Okay, there's no forms yet. Or yeah, it's invisible. You can say it's invisible. It's abstract. It's abstract. Okay, it's only the third level, the third conception, that you have the actual physical, it's a physical forms, okay, forms that you can see. All right. Okay. Now let's go to the last phrase, which is the three produce mirrored things. Okay. All right. Okay. The three produce mirrored things. Where are we? Oops. Okay. All right. So basic meaning is On the general level, it's the unity, the Tai Chi, right? The one giving rise to the complementary duality of yin yang. That's the two, right? The duality. But then the duality in their interactions produce the trinity. Okay, so the 1, 2, 3 are all the unity, duality, and trinity are all that is necessary to create and generate all mirrored things, the profusion of colorful diversity of this world. So that's what it requires. 1, 2, 3, the unity, duality, and trinity creates, creates the infinite, you can say myriad, infinite, countless phenomena, forms. Now, from the world level, you can say from the dynamism, that's the change, it created the biosphere, which means it's the life-sustaining parts of the earth in this case, So all different forms of life can be found in nature, all right? So another meaning is, this is the specific now. This has to do with the three subtle conceptions. The stirring of one delusional thought, because it's unenlightened state, so it's a delusional thought, gives rise to the three subtle conceptions. This stirring of a delusional thought occurs when we are not aware of, that is not at one with our Buddha nature essence. So as long as we're no longer in the state of awareness with our Buddha nature, that's when delusional thoughts will occur. So when we are not aware, it becomes the enlightened state, and that will then create karmic action. That's the first subtle conception. All right. The additional is, because of our unenlightened state, we have delusional thoughts. So we end up, so that's the first, right? First subtle. Then the next is that with that delusional thought, we end up transforming our illumination of wisdom, the light of wisdom, if you call it, the bright wisdom, the brightness of the wisdom, into what? The ability to perceive phenomena. Gives you the ability to perceive. So that is to transform thoughts into the ability to perceive forms. So right now, this is all in your head or whatever. It's still abstract. It's still not yet visible or not yet apparent, or it's not. It hasn't appeared yet. So that's the second subtle conception. Then at the third level, up to this point, first and second, conception, subtle conception. Although no forms yet exist, the forms haven't existed yet. But because of our persistence in desiring, to perceive forms, karmic forms, you still want to, going down that path, want to perceive things or perceive phenomena, then all perceptions that are perceptible then will manifest into objects for us to perceive. That's what the third subtle conception is. All right. That's when, at the third subtle conception, that's when we can start to see objects or see forms. All right. All right. Now let's talk about the general level. The Tao is the empty source of everything, the void containing infinite potentialities and limitless possibilities, waiting for the right time for manifestation. This state of emptiness is the state of non-being or non-existence, such as the number 0. Or Uji. Now, this first line of chapter is the Tao version of the creation theory or Genesis hypothesis. We'll talk. Before I go, and I didn't mention this, but yeah, this has two. You can say you have to, on one hand, it shows that there's no absolutes. So it's relative. Now you can also say yes, because there's always in change. Everything's in flux. Remember, so the yang does not necessarily always will stay yang. Remember, right? Nothing is fixed, permanent. So that's why you have a tiny, in this case, yin dot here, to represent that the seed of the yang of this, okay, begins with the yin, okay, and vice versa, okay. So the seed of the yin, this tiny dot, the very beginning, you can say the beginnings of the yin is in the yang. So what it means is this. Another way of saying is this: when yang or something that's yang-like, we it doesn't have to be male, female, okay, something that's yang-like, whatever dimensions, qualities, or attributes reach its max, the max yang reaches peak, then what happens? It's going to start declining, and that's what the yin dot here represents. That's when the yang reach its max, its peak, it has nowhere to go but down, and that's the beginning of the yin. And same thing with the yin. When the yin reaches its peak, you can say, you can't get any lower, right? And you hit the bottom, okay? And this tiny white dot of yang represents that. When the yin reaches its peak or its bottom, whatever adjective you want to use, then that's when the yang will start to increase or to start, to grow. So that's why in the what do you call that? The seed of the yang, the yang, the positive, is in the yin. Okay, so that's what it means. So it symbolizes it's dynamic. Everything is flowing, it's changing. So the yang reaching its max will transform gradually into the yin, and the yin, when it reaches max, will gradually transform into the yang. So that's dynamic, but it also represents its relative too. Okay, all right. So that's what it means. Okay. So there are two parts, and I'll get to. I didn't mention it initially, but because I'm going to talk about bring up a story to talk about how yang. So let's say yang. Let's attribute yang as something that's gain. That's a gain, right? If you gain something or you win, that's yang. So if you lose something or you lost, that's yin. So what could be when you have something? When you think you have gained something, it could also be a loss. So so that just means that yang can transform to yin, yin can transform to yang. Okay, but I'll talk about a story. That's a very famous story towards the end. All right, okay, to illustrate that. All right, okay, let's talk about the specific. Okay, where are we? Oh yeah. Should I do this? Yeah. Okay, let me go to. Oh no. Let me finish this. Well, no, shoot. I have more. Okay, let me finish this and I'll go to the appendix. Okay. All right. So here's the higher level understanding. There's a, oops, sorry. Okay, here. Yeah. Okay. This has to do with basically I'm summarizing what the three subtle conceptions is. That's why I call it specific. Okay. So the phenomenal world came into existence. Okay, due to our perception of objects. That's the third subtle conception, which arises from our desire to perceive phenomena. That's the second subtle conception, and which is initiated by the karmic action, which is the first subtle conception. Now, this started all, well, this was put into motion because it came from our enlightened state, the state of being unaware of our Buddha nature essence. So in everyday life, right? So as long as we are not at one with our Buddha nature, or we are not following of our Buddha nature, maybe that's another way of saying, if our Buddha nature is not our master, so in daily life, if the Buddha nature is not in our, whatever we think, we say, we do, actually is all it's the playing out of the three subtle conceptions. Make sense? Okay, so you have the initial thought, right? Doom. Okay, and then then it goes. Okay, it goes. Okay, so that's similar to in Buddhist sutra. There's within enlightened agitation. I mean, that's ignorant activity. Certainly, there are rivers, mountains, rivers, and great lands. Okay, that's just means that that's in Buddhist scripture. Okay, sutra. Just talking about that. Is basically illustrating the result of the three subtle conceptions. Okay, all right. So the implication is, here's the important part, is that this understanding of the Tao as nothingness, as the void, came from intuition, from within. You can't observe it by looking outward. Looking at the night skies, you don't see the void. You just see, a lot of things, a lot of stars. Okay, so it's from the realization of the vastness of the Buddha nature, from the very keen awareness of the original state of the Buddha nature. Okay, so that's why you can say this. What I'm trying to say is that in this first sentence, when we say the Tao produces the one, it's not done through scientific method. Okay, you can't deduce that from scientific method. You may be able to deduce it, but it's fine. What I'm saying is it's not external. Well, maybe that's a easier way. It's not found. The realization of this truth, if you will, or this principle is not through external observation. Rather, it's internal. It's focused internally, and which I'll get to. Well, it's as a matter of fact, it's found in chapter 1, line 5. Okay, it's line 5. All right. Okay, in chapter 1 of Tao Te Ching. Okay, the key point. Here is this. Okay, here. Okay, the general case is that the true emptiness of void, which is the zero or the Tao, the Wuji, gives rise to the one, the unity, which in turn gives rise to the two, which is the duality, the yin yang duality, the complementary duality, which then gives rise to the three, which is the trinity. Okay, that's the dynamics, the dynamism, the dynamics. Okay, the change, which in turn gives rise to all things, or the infinity of all phenomena. Okay, so that's what this first 13 words, okay, represent. Now, at the specific level, okay, it just, okay, it's about the three subtle, specific meaning to humans. Okay, all right, it's that being aware, being in a state of unawareness of our Buddha nature essence, leads to the stirring of our thoughts, which then gives rise to the three subtle conceptions, which creates or starts the creation of karmic action that in turn transforms our illumination of wisdom into the ability to perceive phenomena, leading to the existence of objects for our perception. Okay, so that's in chapter 1. Actually, chapter 1, he hinted at, okay, at line 6 of chapter 1, all right? Always existing or within existence, one desires to observe its manifestations, okay? All right, let's go to Appendix A. I just want to, because we finished the first line, and here's Appendix A, all right? Now, this is a simplified summary of the three general concepts, perspectives on the creation or Genesis hypothesis. So in the beginning, right? In the beginning, okay. Now there are three. Okay, there's religious, there is scientific, and then there's the Tao. Okay, the Tao. So the Tao, which we just talked about in line 1 of section 1, it's the empty source of everything, right? Okay. Now in the religious view, they're saying God, it's God. God is the omnipotent, that's all powerful, omnipresent, that's it's eternal, okay, timeless. It's the ultimate source. There's no other source, okay, beside God, okay, and that's the eternal causeless cause, okay. So there's no other cause. So in the Tao, we don't use the term God, even though you can say, yeah, it's God. I mean, that's no problem. I mean, it's not a problem. But we just talked about, it's the ultimate, right? It's the Tao that gives rise to everything. It's the void, right? That emptiness. There's no cause beyond the Tao. Okay. Now, in the scientific view, it gets a little complicated. They have three leading theories, possibilities. The first one, and that's the most honest. If you ask most scientists, I mean, the most honest answer they should give you is that they don't know. So it's unknown. They don't know. They have no clue, or there's no evidence, right? Okay. But most likely, a lot of times, you would get the answer of number 2. They would say it comes from nothing. It's the Big Bang. It's, it's from nothing, and then boom, then we have everything. Okay. And other people would call it the multi-universe. That's the third theory. It's part of string theory. It's called the M theory, multiverse theory. But it just means that we have infinite number of parallel universes, like, okay, so we're in one of them, okay, but then there's infinite other yous, other of you, us, in different universes, in different dimensions, whatever. Okay, so that's it's impossible to prove, obviously. Okay, but it's proven, quote unquote, in mathematically. It is very, very complex math. It's very elegant math. Okay, but it's only math. It's only theory. Okay. Anyway, all right. Okay. So the second one level is the Tao. That's the nothingness or void. Gives rise to the universe. As a matter of fact, universe means one verse. You know that, right? Universe. Okay, or one song. Okay. Anyway, so that's the one, the unity, the unity and itself. So it contains all phenomena. Okay. So in the Bible, or I'm using the Bible right now as representative, as a proxy for all religions, even though, all religions, I'm generalizing here, but all religions have some form of creation theory, Genesis hypothesis. They vary slightly. They use different metaphors, different forms, images. But I'm picking Christian because it's associated more with the West, the Western mind, that Western tradition. So I'm using the Bible right now, and this is the King James version, John 1 verse 1, John chapter 1 verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, right? Okay, so instead of the Word, the Tao uses, in the Tao we use the Tai Chi, okay? Now, in the scientific view, they call it quantum fluctuation, which gives rise to the Big Bang. So it means nothing gives rise to something, okay, or everything in this case. But it's just quantum fluctuation, because quantum particles can come into existence and then they disappear. Yeah, it's really weird. Okay, it's really weird. All right. Okay, now let's go to the third level. Okay, so then once we have the unity, once we have the Tai Chi, the unity, it gives rise to the complementary duality, the yin and yang, which then can manifest as opposites, pairs, heaven and earth, light and darkness, etc., etc. Now, in the Bible, the religion in this case, they use the term. It's in Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth and a whole bunch of other stuff. All right. Okay, and then God divided the light from the darkness. Let there be light, let there be darkness. Okay, so that's how. Okay, the one religious perspective is. Now, in the scientific theory, it's the emergence of energy and matter, right? So energy and matter, right? So we know that science and physicists say that they are equivalent because, right, there's a famous Einsteinian equation, E is equal to mc squared. So energy and matter, right, are related. Okay, so you have energy and you have matter. Okay, so that comes from we say from the Tai Chi, from the one. Okay, it comes from the quantum fluctuation, whatever. Okay, so you have two, energy, which is invisible. It's not a energy. You can say it's a form, but it's not. It's not. It's not. How can I say? It's invisible. You can't touch it. It's not nothing. Whereas matter exists, right? Matter, you can measure it, quantify it, etc. Energy, I guess you can quantify, but it depends. Okay, then from these two, from the notion of energy and matter, you have emergence of positive energy and negative energy. Okay, that's one theory. Okay, that's one theory, and it's called the zero energy universe hypothesis. I don't go into detail. It's very complicated, but it just means that on the whole, if you were to measure, quantify the energy level of the entire cosmos, they should be zero. They should balance out between the positive and negative. Anyway, okay, whatever. All right, okay, all right. So that's just an interesting sidelight of so that you can get the idea of that there are three. I categorize that three. I mean, religions has many views, but in general, they're kind of parallel. They kind of, it's not like the Tao, especially the Tao position. It's not. It's very actually, it makes sense. It's not. Out in the left field someplace. Okay, so it's pretty good. Okay, it's a pretty valid, okay, view. All right, so that's all I want to talk about. Okay, so just so that you guys know that there, okay, religions also have their own views of creation, but it's all rely on God basically. Okay, and the scientists, their own. Okay, all right, okay, let's go to. I want to get moving here. We're almost an hour. Okay, here I'm gonna go quick. Where am I? Okay, right here. All right. Okay, so mirror things bearing or back, the word fu could mean back or relying, bearing in the yin and embracing the yang, achieve harmony by integrating or merging their energy. Okay, so that's very important. Okay, fu yin, okay, just means, it literally means back by, bearing, relying on. The yin principle is the backing. We say, backing, foundation, source, or the basis of life. It refers to females as the source of life. So on the human level, mothers giving birth to an infant. In the general level, the life in all living things has a foundation in the yin principle. Okay, then bao yang means, literally means to embrace yang. It's to be active, to embrace the active, dynamic, action-oriented principle, to do all things and living a normal life, for example. Humans, in the human level, babies learn to crawl and then to walk as soon as they can. In the general level, or the broader scope, all living creatures also become active as soon as they are strong enough, right? After they're born, right? If they don't become active, they die. Okay, so that means they have all yin, no yang, right? Okay, etc. Okay, so the basic meaning of this is that all living things contain both yin and yang attributes and qualities. So all living things come from the interplay or interaction of yin and yang energies. Okay, so another way is that both yin and yang mutually coexist within all living things. Okay, another thing is, so there is some sort of balance between the yin and yang energies or attributes or qualities, etc., in all living things. But the balance need not be only a 50-50 ratio, but rather could be a range of ratios depending on the circumstance, conditions, etc. All right. So here's very important is that all living things do not have either extremes of only yin or only yang attributes. Okay. So all living things, including humans. Okay. So basic meaning of the second phrase is to integrate, right? To achieve harmony by integrating their energy or merging. Is not only do we have the yin and yang within us, but complementary dualities manifest in everything we do, in our thoughts, words, actions, dealings with situations, okay, etc. All right. So we have to work. It means what the implication is that we have to work with both the yin and yang dualities. Okay. So that's where you have to merge, okay, or combine the two. So the yin and yang symbol of the Tai Chi diagram illustrates this central concept. All right. Okay. We may be able to maximize or minimize one of the other, but you can never completely eliminate yin or yang. So there's the yin, right? Okay, within the yang, and the yang within the yin. So that means one will lead to the other, right? So when the yang reaches its peak, the yin, the tiny black dot, is in this in that to indicate that that's when the yin will start. Okay, and then etc. Okay, so there are no absolutes in this phenomenal realm. Everything is relative. All right, that's what the diagram would represent. So here it is. Okay, so what we mean is that when you have too much of either yin or yang, that could lead to serious or negative consequences. All right. Okay. So on the other hand, the proper mixture of the two can be very positive. So leading to harmonious balance, right? The harmonious balance can manifest as, good health, better health, authentic personal value, etc. Okay, I'll talk a little bit. Okay, so here's the deeper understanding of yin and yang attributes is that yin and yang attributes and qualities are within each person. So each person, that means it's self-sufficient. You've got everything. You represent the Tai Chi, you can say that, okay? The Tai Chi is within you, okay? All right, so, okay, so now, this is the basis. Because of this theory, okay, this, that the Tai Chi is in all of us, okay? We have the yin and yang in all of us. So this is the basis for the Taoists. I used to tea because this is not the type of practice we follow. This is more the alchemical way of practice, okay, by the Taoist practitioners, okay. So they practice, returning to the absolute realm from the phenomenal realm as follows: one, to refine the essence to transform the energy, refine energy to transform the spirit, refine the spirit to return to the void, and refine the void to merge it. Now, when we say essence here, when their use of essence here does not mean our Buddha nature essence. Their essence is more physical, okay? It's more physical essence. It's the essence of male of the yang, or essence of the yin, okay? It's more like that, okay? All right. So actually, this first step it's analogous. I don't have too much time, but anyway, it's 炼精化气. It's okay in the I Ching, in the Book of Changes. Okay, the heart, right? We have the organs, right? In the I Ching, they associate each organ to a element, to a corresponding element. So the heart, for example, right? The heart represents fire, right? Represents fire. So it's it's what, near shoulder level. It's on the top of your chest or the upper level, and then below towards your torso, on both sides, you have the kidney, which is represented as water. Water, I think, yeah, water. The kidney organs are represented by water. So what in the I Ching, in the I Ching hexagrams, this is the ladder. It's called 后天, the ladder hexagram, the phenomenon hexagram. You have the fire above the water. Now, from the you have to go back to the pre-heaven, or the 先天 hexagram, or which is to the Tao. You can say to the void, to the absolute realm, to the void. You have to flip it. You have to reverse it. Okay, so then you have to put the water above the fire. Okay, that's what the goal is. So the way they do it is, so they say, yeah, how do you transform? So that's what they're saying. They're refining the male essence, or the essence of the fire and the water, to transform the energy. Okay, the energy means vitality. Okay, it means vitality, and then the spirit. Okay, it's really actually both. But anyway, okay. So what this means for how the alchemist, the alchemist Taoist practitioner, they would do is, they would say, okay, how do you put the fire below the water? Because you have to transform it. Okay, you have to put the water above the fire, because right now the fire is above the water, meaning the heart is above the kidneys, right? So they practice alchemy, and the real practice is to do this. Now this is, we say this is external because it has to associate with the heart, and right. It just means that the real meaning, and this is very parallels to the Buddha's teaching, okay, is this. We have the fire represents what? You can say energy, yeah. But it represents rage, temper, right? Fire, temper, okay? So the key is you have to lower your temperature, calm down, okay? Lower your rage, okay? Your rage threshold, okay? And by doing that, when you 降火, okay? I mean, as a matter of fact, they use this in Chinese medicine, but anyway, that's that. You have to lower the heat, okay? So that it drops down, so that then it drops down to the level of your kidney, to the water level, and then it'll heat up the water, transform the water into steam, and so the water will rise. That's how you do it. So it's not physically, moving the heart to below the kidney. No, it's not that. It's metaphorical. It just means that you have to lower the heat, or lower the heart, the heat, the fire, to the level of the water, to boil the water, so the water transforms to steam, and that's when it rises up. So that's what it means by transforming the energy, right? So refining the essence of the water, or fire, or water, and to transform the energy, to turn the water and the energy of the water into the steam. That's an example. Now, how does this relate to Buddhism? Very simple. The very first steps of Buddhist teachings is what? It's what? It's what? Everybody knows. It's very simple. 改毛病去脾气. Okay? It's 6 words. Is it? Yeah, 6 words. It means to correct our what? Faults or shortcomings, and to what? Reduce or eliminate our bad temper. And that's what this first step is. That it's essentially that. Okay, that's what it means. Okay, so it parallels Buddhism. And then the second step, I can't go into too much detail. It's a lot of information. But the second step is now you have the energy or the the steam, right? In this case, right? As an example, you want to transform it to what? To the steam into the spirit, which is the vitality, which is the it's called the vitality or the spirit. Yeah, in Taoism they call it spirit. It's the vitality or life force. Maybe that's a better term. Life force, to transform the energy into the life force. Okay, and actually, this step also in its parallels Buddhist teachings, which is what? Which is what? Anybody know? Which is what? It's to what? To focus, to concentrate, to quiet our minds. Okay, not to let our minds, think, nonstop racing. Think. Okay, so this step actually it's 2 and 3. 3 is the highest level, but it's what Lecture Liu talked about, right? 一念不生. Do not let a single thought arise. Okay, so this step is in the Taoism, the alchemist methodology, a practice method, is parallels what in Buddhism we talked about: calming your mind, stilling your heart and mind. Okay, no more emotions, or not no more, or reducing emotions, no more passions, desires, none of that. Okay, that's what this means. Okay, and the third step is it's the supreme to the void to the in the Buddhism it means what? Dhyana, the fifth parameter, right? 禅定, to reach the highest level of dhyana, which is samadhi or sanmei, which means what? Total, we say stillness, or you can say relinquishment, total relinquishment. So here you're already starting to do the relinquishment right here. I mean, you started here. Then here you completely reach that highest state of relinquishment, total relinquishment. No more ego. The 4 images, right? The ego, etc. in the Buddhism, right? Okay. So here, actually, one and actually not two partly. Okay, but one definitely has to do with the 3 poisons. Eliminate the 3 poisons. The 3 poisons, right? Lust, desire, right? That's the heat. That's the passion, the flames of passion. Okay, all right. And here too, I mean, you have to get rid of ignorance. It's right here. Okay, ignorance is right here. Okay, all right. So very similar. And then the last step is when you are at the total level of quietude, stillness. That means no more ego, no more the 4 marks of existence, right? The 4 ego, 3 minds, etc. Right? You're in total quiescence or stillness. That what appears is your Buddha nature. But that Buddha nature is only within you right now at this point. So then you have to refine that void, which is the Buddha, to merge with the Tao, which is now this is in the Taoist alchemist methodology, that terminology. But the parallel in Buddhism is once you have that state of total stillness, you're clear, right? You have total clarity, but then you have to expand that clarity. You have to merge it with the entire emptiness, the void, and then you become one. Then you are the void. The void is you. So you, not just you physically, one person, you encompass the entire cosmos, right? Okay, so that's the Taoist method. Okay, but it parallels the teachings of Buddhism. Okay, you're not going to too much detail. Okay, the right now is the yin and yang. Both the yin and yang mutually coexist in all living things, and by the fusion or merging of the two, it achieves harmony. That's the Tao, which is embedded in everything and can be applied everywhere in everyday life, in all interactions with people. Okay, so the key point is we need to fuse the Tao within our daily lives so that the Tao energy is in our lives. The specific more is that it means that the the complementary dualities in yang are already within each of us. And by integrating the two energies, we can achieve harmonious balance in our lives and within our families, which will benefit us and manifest as better health, more longevity, authentic personal power. Most internal is the greater clarity of mind, right? Enhanced mental alertness, higher degree of awareness, deeper degree of concentration, etc., okay? And greater success, that's the external side in social interactions, familial and personal relationships, at work, etc. All right, so part one, summary, we're not going to talk about it. Part two, there's a different, there's a different perspective of this section on the Tao creation. If we have time, we'll get to it, but right now I want to go. Okay. So now we're in section 2. So section 2 is talking about how the Tao or the harmonious integration will apply. Okay, so it just means what people dislike are alone, are being alone, bereft, and unworthy, yet the rulers are so called. Okay, this there's a similar line that we already this line should sound familiar to us. Okay, this appeared just a couple weeks ago. Okay, when we talked about chapter. Well, anyway. Okay, so this is gu. Gu means literally. It means literally. It means widow. You know that? Sorry, not widow. Orphan. Okay, literally it means orphan. So that's why you're alone. Sorry, that's what I mean. But it's used to convey the sense of loneliness being at the top. That's why he used rulers here. It has to do with the rulers, right? Why rulers use these terms, okay? These terms, okay, to describe themselves, okay? So it just means that, okay, that when you are at the top, it's pretty lonely. And why? Because people may want to be friends with you, with the rulers, but they have motives. A lot of time, mostly they have because they want to have their influence, prestige, power, etc., etc. Okay, so that's why rulers are pretty lonely. They don't. We don't know if they really have true friends. Okay, that's now. Gua means I think it's pronounced gua. Yeah, it's gua. Yeah, gua means literally means a widow or widower. Okay, but it's used to convey a sense of or to be deprived or lacking or without virtues. So the ruler assumes there must be room for improvement, okay, even though they're at the top. So because that's a sign of humility as opposed to a sense of perfection, okay. And then gu, this is buku. Literally, it means no grain, not grain, okay. But it's used in it's not used today in modern Chinese or in Putonghua, Baihua. It's used in ancient context as unworthy, without honor, without goodness, or without virtue, okay? Because most of the rulers inherited their positions, not because it was something they earned, okay? Unless they won it, in war. But anyway, okay? So basic meaning is this. We can easily observe the world around us and see what people like and dislike. There's a difference between most people and those who are Tao cultivators, okay? There's a difference. We are in the midst of this material world, so most of us, it's natural to pursue material things, okay? All right, so the typical person likes to be seen in a positive light, to be widely known as a good person who deserves all the good things in life, while disliking being a social outcast or seen as a bad person, right? That's natural. We like to be praised, etc. But that's because most people, unenlightened beings, have this ego, and that's what they want to satisfy their ego. Okay, all right, okay. So here's the additional line: is that yet these very qualities that most people dislike were the self-deprecating, the humble descriptions that rulers use on themselves during the time of Lao Tzu and before. So that's why in chapter 39, Attain Oneness, we talked about this, the same as matter of fact, almost the same phrase. Okay, it's fourth to the last line. Okay, so this was also true before the time of Lao Tzu and common practice. Okay, back then. All right. Okay, now. Further understanding. Before the time of Lao Tzu, though, before the time of Lao Tzu, when people have a high position in society, such as ruling, they must work extra hard within themselves to discover places where they're good. That's why they're very humble. They knew that they're not perfect, even though they are still absolute rulers. Okay, so. And so the original intent was to emphasize the virtue of humility, but over time this was forgotten, distorted, or misused. And rulers who are ignorant of the Tao might might use such terms without their real understanding, without any true humility. So in every discipline, the real masters appear unassuming, while those who put on airs and flaunt their titles are not the real master. So in every discipline, be it a teacher, an athlete, a kung fu master, a politician, etc., a leader, etc. Okay, that's what it means. Okay, all right. So the key point is this. Is to emphasize the point of attainment that you must be more humble the higher your position, especially true for rulers, okay? Or the higher your achievement of the Tao. You must be more humble. The higher your position, and that's a yang quality, right? The higher level, that's the yang quality. The more humble, that's the yin quality, right? So the higher position, that's the external, okay? External. It could be your mind to your knowledge, but anyway, okay. So that's the yang quality. And yet you must be more humble. That's the yin quality. So this is the example of fusion of the yin and yang paradigm. Paradigm means, it can mean example, model, etc., pattern, okay? So that's why Lao Tzu is saying you have to merge the two, the yin and yang. Yeah, on the one hand, you could be very, very, high up, high position, very knowledgeable, whatever, okay, powerful, strong, whatever, okay? But at the same time, you have to what? Bear the yin, or hold, have the yin, okay, which is the being humble in this case, okay? All right, okay. So those who have a high level of spiritual attainment are usually down to earth and plain spoken. So the high level of spiritual attainment is the yang quality, or the yang attribute, and the you down to earth and plain spoken is the yin. Okay, so because the more they achieved, that's the yang, the more they realize how insignificant their achievements are. That's the yin. So that makes them naturally more humble. Okay, so that's very important. You have to get the two. All right. Okay, so now we're at the we're at the second half of the section 2. Okay, I'm going to go this very quick. So the basic meaning is this: what seems like a loss may actually be a benefit. So this is the yin and yang once again, right? What seems like a loss, that's the yin, and benefit is a yang. So once again, in that diagram, remember you have the tiny dot of yang in the yin, right? So when the yin reaches its peak, well, this is the loss, reaches bottom, then it can transform to a yang, in this case, benefit. Okay, so for example, I think in the West, not so much the East. This is due to cultural differences. Most of the time in the West, if you say, if you meet people, okay, especially strangers, you say, hey, you're kind of chunky, you're kind of overweight. That's a negative connotation, because people, especially in the in the developed countries, we have an issue with obesity, right? Okay, so if we, okay, so from an individual perspective, and the Eastern perspective, sorry, when people usually greet each other, or not necessarily greet, but when they talk to each other, they would normally say that, oh, if you've gained weight, that's a good thing. You know that, right? In the East, in the Eastern culture, okay, Asian cultures especially, okay. And whereas if you look skinny, that's considered a negative quality or an inequality. Whereas if you, I want to say overweight, but if you're plump, if you're, I want to say obese, but you're filled out, okay, that's considered a yang quality, which is good. All right, okay. But in the West, so if we're using that mentality, so if we say, hey, we should lose some weight, that may be a good thing because it's better for our health, right? So anyway, okay, all right. So another example is cleaning up clutter, right? Losing clutter may be a benefit, and losing loss of an employment, right? That's a yin, right? That's an yin, right? That's a bad quality, right? I mean, bad, right? Bad thing, right? Negative. So, but it could turn into a great opportunity to explore, right? You've heard that's the yang quality. So a lot of times, some people, especially, these entrepreneurs, or say that, the best thing that happened to them in their career was when they got fired from their first job or whatever, and that led them to create start up a new company and blah blah blah, and there's also that stuff like that. Okay, that's an example. So in life, we see this throughout life, right? That what may be negative what we see as negative could turn out to be positive, and vice versa. Okay, so the opposite could be true too. So what appear to be a benefit or a gain could be actually a loss. Okay, so here's what I'm going to talk about. Okay, oh god, a positive situation can transform to a negative one and back again. See, so it's dynamic. It goes back and forth. Now, this is a very famous story. I don't know if I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to summarize it a little bit, the key points. That's a classic story of the old frontiersman who lost his horse, his mare. It was a mare. Okay, that's the actual story. But how do you know it's not a blessing? That's the 塞温司马焉知非福. Okay, that's a very, very famous. I think most people in Asia, Chinese should know this. So what appears to be a loss may turn out to be a benefit. What appears to be a benefit may turn out to be a loss. Okay, so here I'm just going to go through very quick. Okay, so what happened was in the story is that there's a frontiersman. Okay, Sai means it's a frontier or fort or whatever. I think Wen is the it's an old man. That's what it means. It just means that old man lost his horse. Okay, so what happened was this frontiersman is a expert horse breeder. Okay, horse breeder. So he races horses. He trades in horses for a living. One day, his favorite mare, a female horse, mare, ran away. Okay, ran off. And where did they run off? They ran off because remember they're in the frontier. Okay, I think it's in northern China or someplace like that. Anyway, they ran off into the territory of a hostile tribe called the Hu. Okay, anyway, so it's that. So it's a loss. Okay, so he can go chase after it, right? Because it's in enemy territory, whatever. Okay, so a lot of his neighbors and whatever are telling, old man, you lost your favorite mare, your best mare, the mare who could bring you lot more, better horses, could raise more horses. But anyway, then, because he lived in a 3-generation home, he has his son and also his grandfather living with him, or his father. So his father would say, how do you know that's a bad thing? Anyway, so all the people, would say, hey, you old man, you don't know what you're talking about. It's bad. Okay, it's a big loss. Then, okay, I don't go too much, but then, a few weeks, months later, the mare came back with a stallion, with a male horse. And not only it's a regular stallion, but it's a stallion that is of that enemy tribe, that barbaric tribe, who breed. It's that type of breed of stallion. So wow, so that's a gain, because wow, not only did the old man get back his favorite mare, but also got a stallion. Then he can get more horses, produce more horses. Anyway, so it appears like wow, it's his luck changed. Wow, it's what was initially a loss, the loss of the mare. It's now boom, he got double. He got 2 horses now. So wow, that's a fantastic benefit, right? Then the grandfather would say, or the father would say, that the grandfather, the old man's father, okay, would say, it looks good, but it may not be good. So once again, everybody, that ignored him. Okay, so I don't know, a few weeks later, the stallion, it's a wild stallion, okay, belong, to that. So his son, this old man's son, wanted to break that stallion in, so that he can start, raising, breeding the horses, breed more horses. So he's trying to, break the stallion, right? That means you have to ride the stallion. You have to, tell this wild horse, who's the boss. Okay. So anyway, so the stallion threw his son off, and the son broke his leg. So all the neighbors come back and say, look, that's a bad thing. Look, you think you've got the good stallion, but then, he's still so wild. Your son, can't even just control it. And now he broke his leg. Now he can't help you, So, then the grandfather would say, maybe it's not a bad thing. Anyway, okay. So then a few months later, the Hu tribe on the frontier attack, the kingdom. And so therefore the kingdom need to raise an army. And so they have to recruit all able-bodied males to join the army and fight against the Hu invasion. Okay, well, it turned out to be a very bloody war, etc. And a lot of people died. A lot of young men died. But his son, because he had a broken leg, he is not able to be recruited to join the army. So a lot of people say, hey, look at our neighbors. They all their sons sent out to war died, but your son is still alive. So, isn't that a blessing? So anyway, so what appeared to be initially a bad thing, that is, he broke his leg, right? He can't help, he can't walk around, but it turned out to be a good blessing in disguise. That's the whole point of the story, is that he didn't have to join the army and potentially end up getting killed. All right. So as you know, so life is like this, right? I mean, this is just an example. I mean, maybe, to some degree it's over dramatized, but the whole idea is that here's the 3 key lessons from the story. Okay. All right. Where am I? Okay. 3 key stories, 3 key lessons. Okay. So what people think of as a bad thing, or what we view as a bad thing, may actually contain good things for us to discover, not to get overwhelmed by disappointment. That's not easy, or depression, or you may miss that. So we have to that's why the key is we have to always move on. We can't dwell on the past. So yes, something bad happened to us. It may be unfair. It may be totally unjust, but we cannot dwell on that, because if we dwell on that, we get stuck. We may not be able to take advantage of a potential opportunity that it may present, that this situation could present itself. Okay, so that's a lesson. Okay, so that's what the yin and yang, the yin and yang diagram hints at, that what you may think is the pits, the yin, the in this case is loss, the seed of, the potentiality of something good to happen is hidden in there. It's within. Okay, so anyway, all right, okay. So the second lesson is what people, now this is the opposite side, is what people think of something may be good, as a good fortune, may contain the seeds of quote unquote bad luck for those who are careless. They're inside. So do not lose your head in good news or victory, because arrogance and complacency can lead to one's downfall. All right. So this is the opposite, right? From the first one, right? The first one talks about negative. This one talks about, suppose you achieve great success. Yeah, but be careful, because why? If you become complacent, become arrogant, right? And all that stuff, become careless, then those are the seeds of the yin, or the beginning of the yin, or beginning of your downfall, etc., etc. All right? So that's what the diagram also puts on the inside. So the third lesson is, if we look only at the surface level, we can easily miss the real essence underneath. So that's why we have to think of the Tao as a training to always go beyond external appearances. Okay, you can't read a book by its cover. Okay, to always seek the essence, which is the truth. So you have to go down to the true principle, to the essence, because the essence doesn't change. Everything else changes. Get it? Okay, so that's the idea. Okay, so that's the 3 lessons. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm gonna go over time. Okay, all right. So fully understand the further understanding, life is constantly transitioning from one state to another. The yin and yang, the gain and loss, right? The good and bad, etc., etc. Okay, the high and low, okay, etc. So this is not just the reality in life, but for all phenomena, right? Night and day, etc., etc. Right? Okay, all that. Okay, so deeper understanding is that the yang, the external appearance, may be the opposite of internal reality. So that's what I'm so right. So the yang, maybe something outside may appear very, let's say, very desirable or very good, may appear very good, but its internal quality is that it may be very bad. Okay, so you have to be careful. So that's why you can't judge a book by its cover. The external, right? Maybe look, oh, beautiful cover, but the rest of the, the inside the book, the stories, it's crap. It's lousy. Okay, it's useless. Okay, whatever. Okay, example. All right. So higher understanding is because of the interplay between yin and yang, the dualities, gain and loss is always in flux, right? Just like the story of the old frontiersman and the horse, right? So there's never permanent gain nor permanent loss. Nothing is permanently fixed or rigid. Now, this leads to what? What Buddha's teaching, right? Is this. That due to the constant dynamics between yin and yang energies, everything is impermanent. That's similar to the concept of what? Anicca, right? The one of the 3 Dharma seals, right? Okay. So change is only constant in this phenomenal world. That's the only constant. That you can always expect change. In other words, non-stop change. So the oh god, only halfway, huh? The okay here. Okay, so the inner the inner reality, the inner side of the yin attribute of the situation may not match its appearance, which is the outer, the yang. Okay, so we got to be careful. Okay, just be mindful, understand that. Okay, so the key is this: due to the constant changing conditions resulting from the dynamism, the change, the flux, okay, the transitioning between yin and yang energies, everything is in flux, so nothing is permanent. Thus, a benefit may turn into a loss, and a loss may turn into a benefit. Okay, so be very careful. All right. Okay, so now we're at the section 3 conclusion. Are we at section 3? Yes. Okay, so what the ancients taught, I will also teach as follows. Now, why do I translate this term as ancient? Because this really means people or persons. Okay, that's what it means. Okay, all right, dictionary meaning. But so a lot of people, if you read the translations of some Tao Te Ching, they would translate this line as what other people teach or taught, I will also teach. Okay, so all right, so that's how people translate. Some people translate, and that's not right translation. Okay. This is where we have to read the commentaries, especially ancient commentaries. Okay, what they say about using this term, or the interpretation of this term. Okay, actually, the interpretation of this term refers to sages, ancient sages. That's what this meant. Okay, all right. So it makes more sense. So the meaning of the line is what the ancient sages have always taught about the Tao. Lao Tzu will also teach the same Tao. Okay, so Lao Tzu is just continuing that tradition, okay, the ancient tradition of the ancients. Okay, so it's not what other people say. Okay, it's special. It's only a special group of people, the ancient masters, Tao masters. So the above interpretation makes more sense than what other people taught, I will also teach, because what other people taught may not necessarily be the true teaching of the Tao. Okay, makes sense, right? Okay, all right, okay, all right. So the traditional meaning is Lao Tzu will only teach what the ancient sages taught about the Tao, and not what other people, scholars, philosophers, have taught based on their own schools. And here's why. During the Lao Tzu's time, okay, around the time of Lao Tzu, it's basically the late spring and autumn and the beginning of Warring States period, which is it's a long period of time, roughly 500-year span, 700 to 221 BCE. Okay, and there were many schools of thought and many competing philosophies existing during that time. Or during that period, there's a it's called 100 schools of thought, 诸子百家. Okay, now what are those two? There are 10 main ones. There are others. This is by, I think, Sima Qian or whatever, the great historian, ancient historian. He compiled this. But there are many more schools of thought. There's the Taoism. I'm not talking. I use the T to distinguish the Tao. The T, Taoism. That's the alchemist. Okay, Confucianism, legalism, Mohism, naturalism, or the Yin Yang school, logicians, diplomacy, syncretism or eclecticism, and agriculturalism. That's too many. Okay, so this is very similar to Buddha too. During Buddha's times, there was also so many different, well, there are at least six or eight major schools of thought too. Okay, that competing philosophies and schools of thought. Okay, so what Lao Tzu, what this phrase is saying, it's not what other people taught. That means other people could be these people. Okay, so what the translation should be what the ancient Tao masters taught, I will also teach. Okay, that's very important. Okay, so basically means Lao Tzu is going to carry on the tradition of teaching the Tao by the ancient sages, and he will not be teaching what other people taught at the time because of the various schools of thought. Instead, he will be teaching what the ancient sages tradition taught. Okay, so that's just an affirmation. Now the last sentence. Okay, so the violent one cannot have a natural death. Very interesting. Okay, so 强蓝, 强连, lan, Okay, lan literally means roof beam, but you have to take the two together. It just means it can mean a robber. The specific meaning is it's a robber or a thief, but what we use a more generic. It just means violent people who resort to violence. Okay, it's what we would refer to today as a bully, someone who uses intimidation and physical violence against others will end up with negative consequences, die by violence. That's what this line means. Okay. Straight. So another meaning is a violent person is someone who has too much yang energy. Remember, we say you have to be a balance, right? Not necessarily 50-50, but depends on the situation or the attribute or the condition. So usually a violent person is someone who has very, very high yang energy or yang attribute, very active. So the fire is very, very, fire represents the yang. Okay, remember that. Okay, fire. It's very active. So it's very, it's like a bonfire. Okay, so boom, you're gonna explode. So that's why the hot temper. Okay, so that's, you may have too much yang energy. Okay, so that's imbalanced in terms of yin and yang energy, and thus they lash out against other people. Now, these type of people will likely meet a violent end. Okay, because you use violent means, so you'll probably, get violence back in return. All right. Okay, so the additional phrase is that. In terms of external appearance, it appears that the violent ones are the ones who will get their way and win in the short term, right? They're violent. They got what they wanted. They use violence. They got what they wanted. Yeah, so they gain something, right? They gain something. So it looks like they won, okay? But from the above story about the same thing with the old frontiersman losing a horse, what appears to be a loss may turn out to be a benefit. What appears to be a benefit may turn out to be a loss. So we'll likely suffer violence and die by violence. Okay, so we have to be careful. So now this plays very well. Now, even though Lao Tzu doesn't use the term, but this is called causality, right? It's causality. But Lao Tzu was basing it on the yin and yang, the interaction between the yang and yin energy principles. Okay, so all right. So, but it's the same result. Okay, same thing. So further understanding. So in the end, violent ones will not die in peace. So that's what that line means. Okay, this line. So they will always be haunted by their violence, by their conscience. So that's similar to the proverb, live by the sword, die by the sword. We talked about this in chapter 38, okay? About the Tao of righteousness, okay? So that's from the Gospel of Matthew, okay? All right. So the deeper understanding is those who resort to violence will create their own negative karma that will be repaid with violence. So this follows the law of karmic causality. So that's from the Buddhist perspective, which is true. Okay, yeah, that's true, right? Okay, you reap what you sow. Okay, same idea. Okay, that's in the Bible too. But anyway, okay, so there's a lot of wisdom though in human traditions, both East and West, with regards to violence throughout human history. Okay, where throughout human history to the present, we have seen and continue to see the destructive and detrimental or negative effects of violence. It is bad for people caught up in it and bad for civilization in general. So the flourishing, if you study history, okay, the flourishing and flowering of human civilization occurs, always occurs during times of peace and prosperity, not during times of violence or during times of war. Okay, so the key point is this: violence only results in more violence. Violence plants the seeds of future bad karma, and those who commit violence will be repaid with violence. You reap what you sow. Those who inflict violence on others may seem to benefit initially, That's the yang, right? The gain. But eventually will also suffer a violent end. Similar to the concept of, for positive actions, there are positive rewards. 善有善报. For negative actions, there are negative consequences. 恶有恶报. It is not that there are no consequences. 不是不报. It is only that the time has not yet arrived. 时候莫到. Okay? So that means the time has not yet arrived. So that's what karmic is all about. Okay? So that's why we see some really evil people get away with murder or get away with it and never got caught. It's not that there's no karma. That doesn't mean there's no karma. It just means that the time for their karmic retribution has not arrived. That's all. Okay? And vice versa. Okay? All right. This is the last phrase. Okay? I will use this as the principle of all teachings. Right? Okay. 教父. Okay. Literally, it means father of all teachings. Okay. But it just means what's the primary teaching, the principal axiom, the most important teaching. Okay. The most important. Okay. So basic meaning is Lao Tzu saying that he too will carry on the Tao tradition and teach what the ancient sages had taught. Everything from the beginning of existence, from the very first line of the chapter, to how we live our lives to the previous line. Okay. So he'll teach all that. So the primary teaching is what? If you have to find one of the main themes of this chapter, is that it's the integration or the merging, or the harmonious merging of all the various yin and yang energies, or attributes, quality. Okay, so this principal axiom, though, also includes the principle of karmic causality, right? Because what could be a benefit could be a loss, what could be loss could be a benefit, etc. Okay, it's the interplay of the yin and yang. Okay, so the further understanding is Lao Tzu will diligently teach the true principles of Tao to all of humanity, and in doing so shall be the teacher of all teachers, the master teacher. Okay, so, or you can say the teachers of men. That's the title given to Buddhas, enlightened beings. Okay, Buddhas. Okay, Buddhas. One of the Buddha's 10 titles is, he had many titles, but one of them is the teacher of men or something like that. Okay. 大丈夫, okay? By teaching the principles of the Tao to humanity, it's like the source of all teachings, the fountainhead of that, because this is the most basic of the essentials. Okay, now it's the key point of conclusion. Here it is. It's pretty long, okay? So here it is, okay? By carrying on the tradition of the true teachings of the Tao, Lao Tzu, he will strenuously promote the great Tao, where the foundation of all existence can be expressed as universal creation from the Tao, the void, to the one, the unity, to the two, the duality, to the three, the trinity, to everything, infinity. That's the first line chapter. Okay, so that he'll start from there. But he'll continue to teach what? It's this. Okay, it's where all living beings, including humans, possess both yin and yang, where the higher your achievement, that's the yang, the more humble you must be, that's the yin, where you must master the gain, that's the yang, versus the loss, the yin, master the external appearance, the yang, versus the internal essence, the yin, where those who resort to violence may appear to win, that's the yang, but eventually suffer the greatest defeat, that's the yin. Remember, the seeds of their downfall is in what? The yang, right? Okay, so this means to integrate, to merge, balance all the yin and yang principles harmoniously in everything in life, be it in the cosmos, it's already in the cosmos, but it's also within us. Okay, so that's what Lao Tzu was going to teach. So these, all the previous above, are what he should teach. Okay, so here's the conclusion. This is to merge the harmonious energy, the yin and yang flow of the Tao, where the Tao, the void, is the ultimate source, origin of everything. Okay, so that concludes. This is the summary, how to balance. We talk about balance. This is the practical side. Okay, so you guys can take a look. It's pretty self-explanatory. The yin, these are the left column is the yin quality, so the yin activity, we call it activity, or yin aspect, and the yang aspect is on the right. Okay. Okay, this is now Lao Tzu. Okay, Lao Tzu in chapter 42 talk about the creation theory, right? I mean, he used the Tao, right? Produce the one produce the two produce, the three produce mirror things. Okay, so now, but that's not the original the first time that the Tao addressed the creation theory. It can be found in the Book of Changes, I Ching, okay, Tao creation. So it's 4 lines, but there's a 5th one, and kind of the Wuji Sen Tai Ji. Okay, so that's the first one. So that corresponds to the Tao produces the one. Okay, of chapter 42, and then the second part is the Tai Chi gives rise to the 2 aspects, or complementary duality, or Tai Chi Sen Liang Yi. That corresponds to the second phrase of line 1 of this chapter. 1 produces 2. Okay, and then, oops, sorry, hold on. Okay, and then, sorry, the third line is the 两义生四象. That's the in the I Ching, okay, and that corresponds to the 2 produce the 3. It represents the interaction of the complementary duality. Okay, 两义生四象. Okay, the 四象will be the 4 images. Okay, I think we talked about in previous chapter, right? Okay, then the 4th line is that the 四象生八卦. The 4 images give rise to the 8 trigrams. Okay. All right. Now the trigrams are when it has only 3 lines. Then it becomes a hexagram when it has 6 lines. Okay. Now that corresponds to the further extension of 2 produce 3, which is the further development change from the 4 line. And then the last phrase is the 8 trigrams manifest as mirror things, and that corresponds to the 3 produce mirror things. So this 5 lines or what comes from the Book of Changes. So this is very similar. Okay, it's just parallel. Okay, it's identical. There's the 6 ways of doing Greece good foundation, but you guys can take a look. I'm sorry I overran time. It's a very interesting chapter, and it's a unique chapter because it's the only chapter in the entire Tao Te Ching that talks about the Genesis hypothesis, but it's also very applicable. It just gives you that 1, 2, 3, and that encompasses everything. That applies to everything because it's also within us, and we should also follow that or apply it, make use of that. And that's what Lao Tzu is trying to teach in chapter 42. Okay, that concludes chapter 42. I thank everybody. I ask the Buddhas and saints and Lao Tzu for guidance and forgiveness if I did not say anything proper in this chapter. I thank you. Thank everybody.